meets mind, we ponder, we dream.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you because it's how we meet each other nowadays through Zoom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Chris. It's really, really great to be here. So my name is Michelle Denogene. I'm currently the Chief Marketing Officer at a new AI-powered platform in the travel space called MindTrip. We actually
Mm,
just launched, I guess it's only actually been about 4 months now. It feels like a
wow.
lifetime, but we
Very
just launched
cool.
to the public. We've already been featured in the New York Times, on CNBC. It's been a lot of fun, and we can talk about that. But I've been Chief Marketing Officer and executive in the startup world for over 20 years now. I'm seasoned. I like to tell people I'm not old, I'm seasoned. It's been interesting because I've worked for companies like MindTrip, who are obviously very early stage, all the way up to companies that, eventually go public. So I've run the gamut. I've run full stack marketing teams for most of my career. I also am a startup advisor. I help several startups on the side, and I advise their founders, um, mostly in the technology space. And then I just published a book
Oh,
on
wow.
all of those observations of all of those founders.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. It's called Grow Up, Take Your Startup to the Next Level. And it's based on my observations and working with founders and their leadership teams. And it's based on one simple truth that I think we all can agree on, which is what makes a founder great at starting their company is not going to be what makes them great at growing it. And
Right.
so it's a little bit of a self-help kind of, dig deep into who you are and how your company is operating. But I'm really hoping to help as many startups as possible through this book.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So what brought you into this? Like what made this your passion?
For the book itself, I just adore founders and that entrepreneurial spirit. I find it fascinating, the passion that they have, and the risk that they take in starting companies. And I have worked with so many of them, dozens upon dozens of them over my career. Sometimes brought in as the adult in the room to help them grow. And so
Right.
really, for me, the passion comes from a desire, and it actually started a really, really long time ago as I've reflected on this. Like, the reason I actually went to business school and got my MBA was because I saw so many, and this was a long time ago, Chris. Remember, I'm seasoned.
That's a
Was
good word.
when
I like that word.
Right. It was when the internet was first becoming something. And I saw all of these young, people in their garages raising millions of dollars. And I said to myself, somebody's going to actually have to help them, like business is business. And so here
Hmm.
we go. So I
Yeah.
went back to business school. So now, after all of these years, fast forward a few, now we're here, and I'm so excited. That's what's driving my passion is I've been able in an operating role to help one company at a time. And really now I'm building a platform to help as many as possible.
Right. Okay. So talk a little bit about your current company, what you're working on, and how that all works.
Yeah. So MindTrip is, like I said, it's an AI powered travel platform. It's actually really interesting because the founding team started looking at this first and foremost through the lens of artificial intelligence and what was happening with generative AI. And so they were looking at that, and people were all dabbling with Chat GPT and Dolly and all of these things, but there was no actual application. So, they did what great innovators do, and they were like, well, who needs this? How can I actually apply this technology to a really big problem that exists? And everybody at MindTrip is an avid traveler. We all love to travel the world, and everybody was talking about the time when we had travel agents, and there was that one person that could like
Tell me
put
about
everything
it.
together, and there still are travel
I tell you,
agents.
I miss those times so much. I
Yeah.
miss those times so much because I just thought to myself, basically what's happened in the industry is that it used to be you'd pick up the phone, you talk to somebody, and they would book the perfect trip for you. absolute perfect trip, take you no time at all on your time. But then what happened was we decided to disintermediate or intermediate it and just push it down to the traveler. So now the traveler's got to do all the work. So the traveler's spending ridiculous amounts of time doing all of this work to trying to figure it out. And they still, at the end of it, they still don't know if they're doing the right thing. They still don't know if the guy beside them got a better deal on their flight, right? So
Yes.
it's almost like I wish that we'd go back to those days, because I think there was a better experience for the traveler, as opposed to, I mean, sure, there's some people who love that. I mean, they're totally into sort of piecing the trip together piece by piece and spending hours and days, making sure that they have this and this and this piece in. But I'm like, no. It's just like, I would like just to give somebody just almost like a prompt saying, this is what I'm looking for. And come back to me with the perfect trip or something closer. Let's have a conversation. But right now
Chris,
we're in a situation.
Try MindTrip because that's what you can do.
Because we're in a situation today where we all have to do so much work when it comes to travel. It used to be, let the experts do it, and now just because everyone can do it doesn't mean everyone should do it, right?
Yeah.
But so this is exactly it. Wow.
Yeah,
this
is it. Yeah. So, we look at the world and we said, this technology can really help. It's so fragmented, to your point. The traveler who's not using, human powered travel agent is stuck doing everything themselves. And why is it that we spend hours, going through Instagram and TikTok and getting all this inspiration, kind of like an hourglass up here? And then we have to synthesize it down, and then we have to book it across dozens upon dozens of websites. Like, why is that still happening?
Yeah.
So at MindTrip, we have built a platform that is not only leveraging the capability, the conversational capability of generative AI, but we're also bringing the world of travel. So we're showcasing maps and photos and reviews all aggregated, and you can book everything all in one place. So, whether that's, because that's the other thing that can't happen today, right? You can't book your hotel, flight, attractions, restaurants, events all together. So that's really.
Don't tell me you've actually solved that problem, because that sounds impossible, intractable, unbelievable.
We are working on it. We are working diligently with partners to bring all of that to life. So that's really the mission. That's the goal. We also believe that everybody should be able to plan their trip with their co-travelers. We actually I just did a study, because this was driving me a little bit nuts, that people talk about group travel as this, 10 plus big group of people. And it's such a small percentage of what actually happens in leisure travel. It's not, because when you really look at how many people travel with a spouse or a family or a friend, that's actually the majority. But the industry of travel doesn't really reflect that, right?
Yeah.
That we're all traveling together. So how do we give collaboration tools and really embrace that component of what travel is all about? That it's not just me, but it's my preferences and your preferences, Chris. And we have to kind of figure out how to bring those together and plan a trip together, right? So.
Yeah, that must be really difficult. So I'm trying to figure out how this would work, because it's kind of like, if you are only having a conversation with an AI, then what about all the ads and all the promotions and all of that stuff? I mean, how do those fit into the stream? Because the old school way of doing it is you go to a search engine and you search for something, and then you get, all this junk on the screen, and you're like, oh my God, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I? So like in the new world where you have an AI, we have a prompt. You just say, this is what I'm looking for, and it should just respond with exactly what you want. So what's the business model behind that? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's personalized. So I think that's what you're getting at. You're not seeing a lot of, ads for this and that might not be relevant to you. So that's the beauty of using the AI, right? Is that we can learn a little bit about you. You can take a travel quiz that'll sort of jumpstart it. We have the travel quiz on the MindTrip website, but we'll learn over time. And then what is coming back when you're entering into the chat is specific to who you are. So the business model is an affiliate one, probably no surprise in the bookings once people actually get down and book the trip. And then we also just recently started piloting with destination marketing organizations, we're rolling out an embedded solution of MindTrip as well. Because I think the one thing I have seen is there is so much travel content everywhere on the
Mm.
internet. Like anywhere you look, if you're trying to get to a place, you can watch a YouTube video, you can go to, visit, fill in the blank destination. You can go to TikTok, like you can go anywhere and see travel content, the New York Times. But most of the time it's not actionable. And
Hmm.
so the big piece, especially on the marketing side, which is where I sit in the organization, is how do we turn all of that incredible travel content into something that's actionable and bookable? So right now we're also looking at how do we do that with some of these destination marketing organizations, where if you go to some place like, visit California or see Monterey, I'm in California, so I'm just naming some out here. But you would be able to have that same experience in planning your trip there as you would on the MindTrip consumer facing site.
So how do you ingest all of that content in? Because it's like exactly, I understand completely what you're saying. Because there's also travel creators, right, who go out there and they
Yes.
create tons of videos. Like here's a walkthrough of this city or this city. How do you bring all of that stuff in? Because I mean, some of it's you get it in all different kinds of formats. You have video
Yeah.
content, you have
Yeah.
audio, you have podcasts. How do you bring it all in? How does the AI figure out how to synthesize all that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of our secret sauce.
You
You're
don't have to give
prompting me
away
to,
anything, but
yeah, no, you're prompting me to tease something that's about to launch, but we're in the process of launching something we call Start Anywhere. And we've been piloting this with some YouTube content creators where you can take their video, give us the URL of the video, and we will pull out all the recommendations, especially on YouTube, where some of these
mm,
travel videos are like an hour. They're really long,
oh
right?
yeah,
But they can post and say, hey, you can customize everything that I'm recommending on MindTrip. Click here, and that link will take you into the MindTrip chat area, and we will pull in every recommendation from that video that was mentioned,
oh
and then they
nice.
can start planning their trip from that list of recommendations.
Oh, very cool. But I mean, do you already have a database of this right now? So if I sat down in front of the interface and I said I'd like to do X, would you be able to give me a bunch of recommendations based on that? And then does it learn as I talk to it? Does it ask me questions? I mean,
Yes.
how does it work? Just
Yes. Yeah. All of the above. I mean, it's foundationally using existing large language models,
mhm.
but we have built a knowledge base that sits alongside it of over 6 million different places.
Wow.
And we're using that information to augment what is coming back, and a little bit of what we have fondly termed boss the bot. Because I know a lot of your audience are in AI, so they'll appreciate that. But that's the term that we've come up with. And it's things like knowing, for instance, that a restaurant is no longer opened and
Mm,
being able to steer the bot away from that recommendation. So there are all sorts of things that we are able to do, or prompted after, a certain number of seconds to ask a question if somebody hasn't engaged. All of that is happening on the back end between our own proprietary knowledge base and the large language models that exist.
nice. And what kind of sources do you go to? I mean, how far and wide are the sources? Because you were talking about YouTube videos, you talk about TikTok. I mean, do you encompass everything? Like, does it go to Quora? Does it go to things like Reddit? All the
Yeah, so
yeah.
those things are not stored in our knowledge base. I just want to be clear on that. That's
Okay.
not stored. The places and entities are things like maps and reviews and locations, neighborhoods. But you can basically take anything that is at a URL that has text
Hmm.
on the page, and just plop that URL into the interface, and it will do its best to pull all the recommendations that are in there. You can even, if it's an itinerary, you can even say, you know, build me an itinerary from this blog post. So it really can pretty much traverse most pieces of content. Right now we're working on being able to even upload, receipts and screenshots and things like that. So lots coming soon in that arena, but it's really exciting to be at the forefront of what I think is life-altering technology, kind of like when the internet started, or we had our iPhones for the first time, and got on Instagram and TikTok and all these
Yeah.
things really fundamentally changed our behavior on a day-to-day basis. We believe that AI will do that as well in all sorts of industries, and we're focused on travel.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if it can do the travel agent job, then it's already ahead of everything as far as I'm concerned, because it's just so much work. Like, for example, if you wanted to say book a week in Paris or something like that, and you've never been before, and the amount of time and effort it takes to map all that out, like where am I going to stay? Where am I going to stay depending on how far I am to the things I want to see and stuff like that. So just having that conversational interface is a huge step forward, I think, in what you've already been doing.
We think of it more like almost like an assistant, like a virtual assistant, than because we do believe that there still is very much a role for the travel agent in this space. There's a lot of really hidden gems that are not out in the world where, a large language model is crawling or knows everything about it or knows when to go, or, that road is closed. And so I think that the travel agent still has a place in this world. In fact, part of what we're doing with our tools is allowing the travel agent to now have a more collaborative experience with their customers. If you think about it, I can build out a unique itinerary. I can share it and invite you to the trip. And now you can actually comment on the things I have in there. If you saw something, you can add it in, and then I can comment and say, no, actually, I know the reviews say this, but it's really hard to get to, or whatever. So there's a lot of capability for that human powered, just really personal touch that still happens, whether it's a travel agent or a content creator. We have an entire section called Explore that is almost entirely human powered at this point, because we do believe there's a place for that. But as you and I know, the vast majority of people are now in it, going at it on their own. And so we want to make sure they have the tools to really synthesize everything they're seeing into a trip they're going to love.
Yeah. Well, you have different styles, right? You have some people who really want to map everything out themselves, and other people who are like, just book, book a trip to Paris, do it all for me. And by the way, so can the tool itself actually do the bookings? So if I told it, here's what I want, once they put the itinerary together, it'll actually go out and will it go to travel aggregators and do the bookings, or?
It will not do the bookings for you yet. That is still something like you can come and pull up the hotels within the MindTrip application, but you're still going to have to click the button and put your credit card in and all of that at the moment.
So it'll create your itinerary and tell you generally what to do, and then you have to take the next step.
You have to take the next step at the moment. We'll see where the future holds. But it has been really interesting. We see people do things like that we didn't actually think they would this early in the technology, but we see people asking to move things around on the itinerary. So the itinerary sits kind of on your right, and then the chat is on your left. But they, instead of moving things around, which you can drag and drop, like very, very easy to do, like all the things you're used to in life, but you can actually tell it to do it instead. And we see people chatting and having conversations with the bot that say, move that restaurant from day 1 to day 3. Or I've changed the dates, all the dates of the trip from this date to this date.
Well, that is a tough thing to do. I mean, if the bot can do it, that's easy. That's cool.
Yeah, well, that's the part that I think is a bit of our secret sauce, is that we've connected those two worlds together. Because the bot, as you know, like if you're in ChatGPT or any of the other generative AI systems, it's just text. It's just telling you the recommendations. We've taken it the next step where you can actually see that recommendation and then ask to add it to your trip, move it around, click on it, see the photos, all those things to make it interactive.
Nice. I can't wait to try it. Yeah. So tell me about your book a little bit. So, and what exactly are you focusing on in the book?
So, like I said before, the book is for startup founders and their leadership teams. And it's really about the psychology of founders, because what I have found is that every founder has this incredible gift, the superpower that made them amazing at starting their companies. And typically, especially in the early stages, their company also has that superpower. But in reality, in order to grow, in order to scale, you can't just rely on that one thing. It's kind of like building a house, right? There's four corners to a house, and if you don't have all four, the house is not going to grow, it's not going to stand, it's going to fall down.
Right.
And so it really talks about the different core competencies you need in your company in order to go from that early stage to actually a scaled, successful company. Because what I truly believe, even though there are studies upon studies that talk about why startups fail, right? Like we all know the stat that 90% of startups don't make it. And there's a lot of things in there that people talk about why. Well, they ran out of cash or they don't have product market fit. I believe that each of those things can be something you can overcome with the right people on the team, and that people are the cure to startup failure. And so what the book really dives into is, what is your superpower? What is it that makes you great? What it does, because of that making you great, there's this kryptonite that you have, stick with the superpower theme, right? That is a blind spot that's holding you back. And so even though you need people that do these other things. So for instance, one of the superpowers is the superpower of innovation. And they're really, really great at gaining conviction and solving problems and understanding the solution that's going to meet the market needs. They hate process most of the time. Just can't stand it. Anything that slows you down, right? But at a certain point when you're scaling your company, you need to put that in place. And if you're an innovator as a founder, you may do everything in your power, whether it's intentionally or not, although I would say most innovators I know will intentionally say they hate process. They will try everything to stop the process, the red tape from going in.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's right. But you can't scale without process. For an example, if you start getting a lot of customer issues coming in, and now you need a process to prioritize those, and you're an innovator, you just want to work on the big rock things, like that's not going to work to only focus on the big rock things and not focus on putting process in place to fix issues. Otherwise, your customers are going to leave. So it's understanding and appreciating, respecting and trusting the other types of people that you need in order to grow up. That's the book.
So you do need, well, you mentioned four corners, but I'm assuming there's more than four. Because from my perspective, it's almost like you only really need two. You need like the Kirk and the Scotty. You need the one out front doing the sales, and you got Scotty in the back room actually, making the engines run. But I'm assuming you need more than just the two.
Yes. There's in my world, there's four characteristics that you can hold. One is you can be an innovator, which is the mad scientist, like talking about the idea person. Then you have the builder, who's your Scotty, that's gonna ramp up the company. It's gonna put the process in. It's gonna make sure you can raise money. It's gonna look at the data, right? Hire the right people. Then you have the connector, who is the person that knows everybody in the industry, who can be out there, build relationships, get the company known in a consistent way. And then finally, you have the persuader, which is the superpower that focuses on winning customers. They're also relationship oriented. They're analytical and very much about, those relationships are a means to an end, so that they can close the deals, they can win customers, and they can really figure out and make sure that we're retaining them along the way.
I love that. That sounds great. I'm going to definitely pick that up. So it's time to think like a futurist. It's year 2034. It's 10 years from now. Where do you think we're going to be? I mean, I think when you think about the travel piece, it's kind of like you're going to be sitting at your desk doing whatever you're doing. And then all of a sudden, a full-blown itinerary will drop into your inbox going, okay, you need a vacation. This is what we've booked for you. Are we going to be there?
I don't know if we'll be quite there. I think with all new technology, there's, these thoughts of like, it's going to take over the world, and then we kind of settle into reality. But I do think that there will be a time when you'll have an agent, kind of like an AI agent, that is there for really important things in your life. And so instead of needing to go and search and hunt and do all of that research yourself, you could actually just turn to this thing and tell it exactly what you are looking to do. It knows your history. It knows the types of trips you've taken, or maybe it's, your fitness AI, which I would love, that like, measures and tracks like your steps for the day and where you are in your journey, and really is prompting you at any given time, the right exercises for what your goals and the right, meal you should eat right now or not eat right now. Sorry, it was my birthday.
I want the one where it purposely parks your EV 4 or 5 blocks away, so you have to walk to that meeting instead. I'm sorry, I can't take you any closer. According to this, you need to walk more.
Yeah, but I do, in all seriousness, I do think that we are moving into a world where we will have very specific applications like that for the things that matter in our world, and those will become our front door, our sidekicks, kind of in our pockets that are helping us navigate and be much more efficient than we are now.
Yeah, so absolutely. So do you ever think, like from the startup AI side of things, do you ever think we'll get to a point where in the next 10 years, you can actually prompt a business, where you can actually create a prompt and it would actually create a business from that prompt with AI avatars acting as founders and things like that? Do you think that's a possibility that we can get to within 10 years, or a little further out? Or maybe we don't want that at all?
I think that's further out. Yeah, I think that's further. I came in, I think we had this conversation in our prep call. I came from the automotive industry. And I will tell you, just coming from that background, how many times we thought we would, be all electric or all digital car sales, or like that this was coming, in a 10-year time frame. And it's never fully exactly what we predicted to be in that decade. I think it takes time for things to evolve and kind of settle in. And you've got the early adopters and and then the majority and sort of the laggers. So we've got time for that type of world to become reality if it does. I think the more likely scenario is what I was saying, is that we've got these AI agents kind of in our pocket, to make us more efficient, more effective. I love the idea. I would love somebody to prompt me that I'm working too hard, because they can get a sense for everything that I have on my plate and say, you need a vacation. You need a break.
That's right. You need a break.
That would be lovely. I'll take that. In 10
Here's
years,
the perfect vacation. Awesome. This has been great. Thank you so much. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, all sorts of ways. Obviously, they can go to my website, which is michelledenogene.com. So that's probably the easiest way. You can learn about the book and my background. You can contact me through there. And then I'm just Michelle Denogene, or at Michelle Denogene, on all social platforms. So feel free to look me up and reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. And your MindTrip? How do I get to MindTrip?
It's mindtrip.ai.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. And I put all the links in the show notes so people can go direct. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, likewise, Chris. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Talk to you later. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.